I was never the type to make grand gestures. I didn't need the spotlight. My life was comfortable in its quiet rhythm, and I preferred it that way. But sometimes, the universe doesn't care about your preferences. Sometimes, it throws you into the fire without any warning, and you're left to burn. It all began with a simple party, a gathering of familiar faces, the kind that I didn't expect would change my life forever. My name is Charles, and I don't really know where to start with this. But I guess it all began that night when the noise stopped, the music cut off, and the mic came into her hands. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal. It was my birthday, but I wasn't one for making a huge fuss. I didn't want a grand celebration. I wanted a small, intimate night with a few close friends, a few drinks, some food, and maybe a laugh or two. But my wife, Evelyn, had other plans. She's always been the type to turn small things into big events. When it came to anything social, she was the orchestrator. So my quiet party turned into a full-blown gathering with dozens of people. And I went along with it, not because I wanted to, but because, well, that's just who I am. I rarely speak up. We had friends over, acquaintances from work, a few neighbors, and even some of her old college buddies who I didn't know that well. The house was filled with the hum of conversations, the clinking of glasses, and the occasional burst of laughter. It was lively, the way she liked it. But the vibe shifted. I didn't see it at first. I was too caught up in my own thoughts, watching the social whirlpool from the sidelines. I could tell that Evelyn was in her element. She was talking, smiling, engaging everyone in conversations, and playing the part of the host perfectly. But something felt off. It wasn't obvious at first. It wasn't like she was acting weird or anything, but I felt this nagging unease. I tried to ignore it. I had no reason to think anything was wrong. But then, around midnight, things took a turn. The music slowed down, and a hush fell over the room. People's voices faded into the background, as if they all sensed something was about to happen. That's when Evelyn grabbed the mic. I don't know why I noticed it. Maybe it was the way she held it. So poised, so confident. But I immediately knew something wasn't right. She wasn't the type to get up in front of a crowd like that unless it was for a toast or some lighthearted fun. But this felt different. There was a weight in the air now. The room, once full of laughter and noise, was suddenly eerily silent. I could hear my heartbeat, and I knew, without a doubt, that what was about to happen would change everything. She looked around the room. Her gaze lingered on me for a moment, just long enough for me to catch it. There was something in her eyes that I couldn't quite place, something darker than I was used to seeing. "Everyone," she began, her voice steady, but there was an edge to it that made me sit up straighter. "I've been carrying something for a long time now, and I think it's time I let it out." The room, which had been buzzing with conversation just moments ago, fell into absolute silence. I could hear the faint sound of the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. It felt like the world had frozen for a moment, and all eyes were on her. "Charles," she said, turning to face me, her eyes locked on mine. "I've been hiding something from you. Something that you need to know. And I owe it to you to finally tell you the truth." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I stood there, rooted to the spot, trying to make sense of what was happening. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a speech for attention. The look on her face told me that. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. I could feel my mouth go dry. My throat felt tight. "I've been seeing someone else," she said, and the words cut through the air like a blade. "For the last few months. And I don't think I can keep pretending anymore." My vision blurred for a second. I thought I was going to faint. I had to grip the back of the chair I was standing next to just to stay upright. The blood drained from my face, and the room seemed to close in around me. My wife, Evelyn, the woman I thought I knew so well, had been seeing someone else. How long? Why? The questions hit me like a wave. My brain couldn't keep up. I stared at her, unable to speak. She didn't seem to be looking for my reaction. She was calm, too calm. It was like she had already made up her mind. "I've tried to make this work, Charles," she continued, her voice unbroken, almost detached. "But the truth is, I don't love you anymore. And I don't think I ever really did. Not the way you loved me." My mind was racing. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Every thought I had was shattered into 1,000 pieces. The woman I had shared my life with, the woman I trusted, had been living a lie. A secret that I had no idea about. And now, in front of everyone, she was confessing it like it was some kind of twisted truth she was finally freeing herself from. "I know this is hard to hear," she said, her gaze never leaving mine. but I've made my decision. I'm not happy here, and I haven't been for a long time. She took a deep breath, and before I could respond, before I could even process what had just happened, she walked out of the room, leaving the microphone on the table as if it was just another piece of furniture. The silence that followed was deafening. I didn't move. I couldn't. I couldn't think. I couldn't speak. I was frozen in place, watching the people around me, our friends, our guests, who had just witnessed the unraveling of my entire life. And that's when I realized something. Nothing would ever be the same again. It's strange, you know. In that moment, as I stood there, surrounded by people who I thought were friends, I felt more alone than I had ever felt in my entire life. I stood there, utterly stunned, as Evelyn walked away. The words she had said kept echoing in my head, replaying over and over again. I've been seeing someone else. I couldn't escape them. The room around me was a blur, but I could feel the stares of the people who had gathered at my birthday party. Some were shocked, some were uncomfortable, and some were whispering among themselves. I didn't know who to focus on. My head was spinning. I slowly sat down on the couch, trying to process what had just happened. My hands were shaking, my throat was dry. I couldn't catch my breath. I couldn't focus on anything other than that one sentence she had dropped on me like a bomb. Evelyn had been seeing someone else. It didn't make sense. Our marriage wasn't perfect, sure, but I thought we were happy enough. Sure, we'd had our ups and downs, who doesn't? But this was something else entirely. The woman I had built my life with, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, had been lying to me. And worse, she didn't even seem sorry. The silence in the room felt suffocating. No one knew what to do. Should they say something? Should they comfort me? Or should they just leave? I could hear some faint whispers, but nothing clear. I looked up and saw a few faces of our friends, all exchanging awkward glances. I could feel their discomfort, but none of them said anything. I got up and walked outside to the balcony. I needed air. I couldn't stay inside that house any longer. The weight of what Evelyn had said hung over me like a dark cloud. She didn't love me anymore. I didn't even know how to process that. We had built a life together. We had shared dreams, plans, moments that I thought were real. How could everything she said be true? As I stepped outside, the cool night air hit me, but it did nothing to clear the storm in my head. I looked up at the sky, trying to find some sense of peace, some way to understand what had just shattered my world. But nothing made sense. Not anymore. Minutes passed, maybe hours, I couldn't tell. I felt numb, like I was walking through a dream I couldn't wake up from. Eventually, I heard the door open behind me, and I turned around to see one of our friends, Derek. He was someone I'd known for years, and I could tell he was uncomfortable, but he was trying to be supportive. Man, I'm so sorry. I had no idea that was going to happen. I didn't respond at first. What was there to say? Yeah, me neither, seemed like an understatement. Derek cleared his throat, taking a step closer. Are you okay? I mean, I know that's a lot, but if you need to talk, I'm here, okay? I forced a small nod, even though I wasn't sure what I wanted to talk about. What could I even say? How do you talk about the fact that your wife just publicly told you she's been seeing someone else and doesn't love you anymore? It was all too raw. Too much. Derek hesitated for a moment, then added, I know this is hard to hear, man, but I think you need to know something. I raised an eyebrow, feeling a flicker of curiosity pierce through the fog of disbelief. What? He looked around, making sure no one else was nearby, before speaking in a low voice. I don't know if you noticed, but I think she's been with him longer than she's letting on. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I asked, my voice almost betraying me. Derek sighed. I'm not saying I know everything, but I've seen the way she's been acting lately. She's been distant, for months now, and I've caught her texting him a lot. A lot. I felt a wave of heat rise to my face. My hands clenched into fists. I had noticed her being distant. I thought it was work stress, or maybe just the normal ebb and flow of a long-term relationship. But I never thought it would lead to this. You need to know the truth, Derek said quietly, his voice sympathetic. I didn't want to say anything, but I think you should hear it from someone who's seen the signs. I didn't know what to say. I felt like I was suffocating, like the air around me had thickened with all the things left unsaid. I appreciate it, Derek, I said slowly, my mind still reeling. But right now, I don't even know what to do with this. I need time. He nodded, but I could see the pity in his eyes. I get it, man. But don't let her get away with this. You deserve the truth. Truth. That was the word that kept bouncing around in my head. Evelyn's confession hadn't felt like the whole truth. It felt rehearsed, like she had planned it all out, like she had already decided what she was going to do, and now she was just following through. I wanted to believe that maybe there was some explanation, some reason behind everything, but deep down, I knew that the truth was ugly. As I stood on that balcony, alone with my thoughts and the cold night air, one thing became clear. My life had just been turned upside down. And the worst part was, I had no idea what was going to happen next. The rest of the night passed in a blur. People slowly began to leave, awkwardly mumbling their goodbyes, unsure of how to act. I don't blame them. I would have been just as lost in their shoes. Evelyn had completely changed the atmosphere. The laughter, the fun, it was all gone, replaced by the heaviness of what had been said. Eventually, the house emptied out, and I was left alone in the living room. I didn't feel tired, but I also didn't know what to do with myself. I couldn't stay in the house, not like this. So I grabbed my coat and walked out the door without saying a word. The cold night air hit my face, but it did nothing to shake the confusion in my mind. I walked aimlessly for what felt like hours. My feet took me down familiar streets, but everything around me seemed foreign. I couldn't process what had happened. Evelyn's words replayed over and over again. I've been seeing someone else. I couldn't stop hearing them. Couldn't stop asking myself, how had I missed all the signs? Then, as if I wasn't lost enough, I found myself standing outside a small coffee shop. It was closed for the night, but something about the dark windows and the quiet street felt comforting. I stood there for a moment, staring at the darkened interior, when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, and there she was. Evelyn. She looked different. Her face was pale, and her eyes were tired, like she had been up for days. She didn't speak at first. She just stood there, like she wasn't sure how to begin. "Charles," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "We need to talk." I didn't know what to say. After everything that had just happened, I wasn't sure there was anything left to say. But part of me needed to know more. I needed to hear the truth from her, no matter how much it hurt. "What's left to talk about?" I asked, my voice more bitter than I intended. "You've said everything already." She flinched, but didn't back down. "I'm sorry for the way it happened tonight. I didn't mean for it to come out like that." "But Charles," I shook my head. "No, I don't want your apologies. I want answers." She sighed, looking down at her feet for a moment before meeting my gaze. "I didn't want you to find out this way, but it's been going on for months, and I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I thought you'd notice. I thought you'd see it." "See what?" I snapped. "That you were drifting away? That you were lying to me?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I've been emotionally distant, I know. But I never meant for it to get this far. And I never meant for it to hurt you like this." "I don't even know who you are anymore," I said quietly. "The woman I married. She's gone. She's been gone for a while, hasn't she?" Her eyes welled up with tears, but she didn't cry. Instead, she stepped closer. "You don't understand, Charles. I did love you. I don't know when it stopped, but I couldn't deny it anymore. I couldn't keep pretending to be someone I wasn't. I wanted to feel angry. I wanted to scream. But all I felt was a deep, aching emptiness." "So what now?" I asked, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "What do you want me to do with all of this?" Evelyn took a deep breath, her expression hardening. "I'm not asking you to forgive me, but I need you to understand that this isn't easy for me either. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to destroy what we had." I wanted to say something, to tell her how everything felt like a lie, how the last few months of my life had been filled with nothing but confusion. But I couldn't. The words were stuck in my throat. For a long time, we just stood there in silence, the world around us completely still. And in that silence, I realized something. Everything I had built, everything I had trusted, had crumbled. And no amount of apologies or explanations could change that. I didn't know what would happen next. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't the same person anymore. Neither was she. And maybe, just maybe, that was the hardest part to accept. The conversation with Evelyn didn't bring me any closure. If anything, it only made things worse. She had said enough to make me feel like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, but she hadn't given me anything solid to hold on to. I needed answers, but she wasn't ready to give them to me. I spent the next few days in a haze, not knowing what to do with myself. The house felt too quiet, like the air had thickened in the absence of her energy. I kept replaying our conversation in my head, trying to make sense of everything. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I didn't even know who I was anymore. The life I thought I had with Evelyn, the future I imagined, was all a lie. It was on the third day after that night that I found something. I was going through some of my old things in the bedroom, just trying to occupy myself. As I dug through a drawer in the nightstand, I came across something I didn't expect. A small, folded piece of paper. It was tucked away in the back of the drawer, hidden behind some old receipts. I don't know why I opened it, but something compelled me to. It was a letter. I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was Evelyn's. But as I began reading, my stomach sank. The letter wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to someone else. The words on the page were filled with emotion, but it wasn't love for me that spilled from them. It was passion, longing, and regret, all directed at someone I didn't know. I kept reading, unable to stop myself. The more I read, the more I understood. This letter, written months ago, was Evelyn's confession. Not the one she had given me at the party. No, this was something deeper. The truth I had been searching for. "I'm sorry," it began, "but I can't pretend anymore. Every day I see you, and I feel a pull I can't ignore. I know it's wrong, but I've fallen for you in ways I can't describe. I wish I had the courage to tell you sooner. I wish I didn't feel this way, but I do." As I read further, the realization hit me like a wave. Evelyn had been involved with someone else for much longer than I had known. The affair wasn't just something that happened recently. It had been building for months. The signs had been there, hidden in plain sight, and I had missed them all. My hands trembled as I finished the letter. The words burned in my mind. It felt like I had been stabbed in the chest. I didn't know whether I wanted to scream, cry, or just run away from everything. But then, something else caught my eye. There was a name at the bottom of the letter, someone I didn't recognize. My heart skipped a beat as I read it. Daniel. Who the hell was Daniel? That was the moment everything shifted. Until then, I had only suspected Evelyn's betrayal. Now, I had confirmation. But who was this guy? And why had she kept him a secret from me for so long? The questions gnawed at me, and I knew I couldn't just sit back and wait for more revelations. I needed to know. I had to find out who this Daniel was, and why Evelyn had kept him hidden. I couldn't sit with this knowledge anymore. The letter, the name, Daniel, kept spinning in my mind. I knew I had to find him. I had to know who he was, what he meant to Evelyn, and why she'd kept him hidden from me for so long. There was something deeply unsettling about it, like an itch I couldn't scratch. I started by doing what any reasonable person in my position would do. I searched. I didn't know where to start, but the name was the only lead I had. I spent hours going through Evelyn's phone and social media accounts, looking for anything that could point me to this mystery man. It felt wrong, violating her privacy like that, but I was desperate for answers. It was on Facebook that I finally found him. A profile under the name Daniel Brooks. He wasn't hard to find. His profile picture showed him standing on a beach, a smug grin on his face, as if the world owed him something. I froze when I saw it. He looked like someone who had everything he wanted, someone who didn't have to fight for anything. And suddenly, I hated him. I clicked on his profile, scanning through the photos, trying to find any clue that could explain why Evelyn had chosen him. There were pictures of him with friends, at concerts, in some exotic locations, nothing too out of the ordinary. But as I scrolled down, something caught my eye. A post from just a few weeks ago. It was a picture of him and Evelyn, standing close together, both laughing. Her arms were wrapped around his waist. They looked so natural, so comfortable with each other. I felt a sharp pang in my chest. How long had this been going on? Had it always been like this, right under my nose? The caption under the picture sent a chill down my spine. Couldn't ask for a better partner in crime. Partner in crime? My stomach turned. Was this it? Was Evelyn really in love with him? Or was it something else, something even darker than I could imagine? I needed to know more. So, I dug deeper. I went through the comments on that post. Some were from mutual friends, others from people I didn't recognize. But one comment stood out. It was from a woman named Claire, who had tagged Daniel in a post about a trip they'd all taken together. There was something familiar about her name, and it hit me. Claire was a friend of Evelyn's. She was someone I had met a few times at parties, someone I assumed was just another acquaintance. But now, I realized she was more involved than I had ever known. I clicked on her profile next, and that's when I saw it. A string of posts, all featuring pictures of Daniel and Evelyn. They were all over each other, always laughing, always touching. It wasn't just a flirtation, it was an affair. A full-blown, secret life I had never been a part of. The weight of it all hit me. Evelyn hadn't just been seeing someone else. She had been living this double life, and I had been completely blind to it. She had crafted an entire world outside of our marriage, a world with Daniel at its center. I couldn't even bring myself to click on their mutual photos anymore. It was like a dark pit opening up inside of me, swallowing all the thoughts I was trying to keep together. I closed the laptop and sat back in my chair, trying to calm the storm inside my head. What was I supposed to do now? Confront her? Confront Daniel? Part of me wanted to lash out, to scream, to demand answers, but the other part of me just felt numb. How had everything gone so wrong? I knew I couldn't let this go, though. I had to find out more. But what if what I found only made it worse? What if the truth was even darker than I was prepared for? I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew one thing. I couldn't go back to pretending everything was fine. Not after what I had discovered. I couldn't stop thinking about the pictures, the comments, the lies Evelyn had woven around me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, her and Daniel, laughing together, sharing moments that should have been mine. I couldn't breathe. I needed answers, but I wasn't sure I was ready to face them. It was late afternoon when I finally decided. I couldn't wait anymore. I had to confront her, get the truth straight from her. I wasn't going to hide from this anymore. I found myself standing in front of our house, staring at the door. My hands were shaking, my stomach in knots, but there was no turning back now. I walked in, the silence of the house pressing in on me as I moved through the entryway. She was sitting in the living room, her eyes distant, as if she already knew what was coming. "Evelyn," I said, my voice barely a whisper. She didn't look up. "I found it," I added, a little stronger this time. Her eyes met mine, and for a split second, I thought I saw a flicker of guilt, but it disappeared quickly. She looked away, her gaze falling to the floor. "You've been seeing him, haven't you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, even though every word felt like it was tearing me apart. "Daniel, I know about him." Her face didn't change, but I saw her tense. She swallowed hard, then sighed. "I didn't want you to find out like this, Charles." I felt a lump form in my throat, but I forced it down. "How long, Evelyn? How long has this been going on?" She stood up slowly, her movements deliberate. "It started a while ago. I didn't plan for it to happen, but it did. And then, I couldn't stop it." "You couldn't stop it?" I repeated, almost in disbelief. "You chose to keep it going. For months, Evelyn. For months, you've been lying to me." She took a step towards me, her voice trembling now. "I never wanted to hurt you, Charles. I really didn't. But I couldn't keep pretending. I was suffocating in this relationship. And then I met him." "You met him?" I spat. "And that was it. That was all it took to throw everything we had away?" She flinched at the sharpness of my words, but she didn't back down. "I never stopped loving you, Charles, but I couldn't keep living a lie. I needed something more. And Daniel gave me that." I felt sick. I couldn't even look at her anymore. The woman I had shared my life with, the woman I had trusted above all others, had fallen for someone else. It was like the ground had been ripped out from under me, and I was falling, spinning, into a void that I couldn't escape. "You think I can just accept this? That I can just move on from the years we spent together, the life we built?" My voice cracked. "You betrayed me, Evelyn." "I know," she whispered, her voice small now. "And I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I'm not the person you think I am anymore. I can't keep pretending to be." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to scream at her, demand answers, but something about the emptiness in her voice made me hesitate. It was like she had already checked out of our marriage before I even knew what was happening. She took another step forward. "I want you to know, Charles, that this wasn't about you. It wasn't about us not being good enough. It was about me, about what I needed." I couldn't look at her anymore. "And now what? What do you want from me?" She hesitated, then said, "I don't know. But I can't stay here. I don't belong here anymore." The finality in her voice hit me like a punch. She was done. And as much as it hurt, I knew she had already made her decision. I wanted to say something, anything, to make her stay, to make things right. But the truth was, I didn't know if I could. Evelyn was already gone in every way that mattered. The woman I once knew was lost to me, and I didn't know who she was anymore. After Evelyn's confession, everything seemed to blur into a haze. The days stretched on, and I found myself stuck in this unbearable cycle of trying to process what had happened, while struggling to hold myself together. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't talk to friends. I just existed. I had tried to avoid the truth for so long, but now it was all I could see. The lies, the betrayal, the way Evelyn had moved on while I was left in the dark, thinking everything was fine. It felt like I had been living in a fantasy, and now it was crashing down around me. I couldn't stay in the house. Every inch of it reminded me of her, of us, of everything that was broken. So I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and drove. I didn't have a destination in mind. I just needed to be away from there. I ended up at a small, rundown hotel by the beach. I didn't care where I was, as long as it wasn't home. I threw my bag on the bed and sat by the window, staring out at the dark water. The waves crashing against the shore felt like they were echoing the storm inside my mind. It was late, and the hotel was mostly quiet, but all I could hear was my own thoughts, torturing me, relentlessly. Why had she done it? What had gone wrong between us? How could she just walk away? I knew she had her reasons. I knew she felt trapped, suffocated by a life she didn't want. But how could she have turned to someone else instead of talking to me? Why didn't she tell me she was unhappy? I reached for my phone. There were several missed calls from friends, but I couldn't bring myself to call them back. I knew they were all concerned, but I didn't want to hear their pity. Not now. Not when everything I thought I knew was crumbling. I looked down at the screen and saw a text from Evelyn. I hadn't heard from her since our conversation. She had left the house a few days ago, saying she needed space. The message was simple. I'm sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you. I stared at the screen, the words burning into my mind. I had been hoping for something more, something real. But instead, it was just more of the same. Empty words. More apologies that meant nothing now. I typed out a response, but as my fingers hovered over the keyboard, I realized it was pointless. There was nothing left to say. The person I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone else, a stranger. I couldn't keep chasing something that didn't exist anymore. I put the phone down and stood up, pacing the room. The small hotel room felt like a prison. Everything was closing in on me. The silence was suffocating. Then, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't from Evelyn. It was from Derek, the one person who might understand, the one person who had seen everything fall apart from the outside. I didn't know what he was going to say, but I knew I couldn't avoid him forever. I took a deep breath and opened the message. We need to talk. Meet me tomorrow. Please. I stared at the screen, conflicted. What did he know? Why did he want to meet? I was tired of running from this, tired of hiding from the truth. Maybe it was time to face whatever came next. But part of me was scared, scared of what Derek might say, scared of what might come out of his mouth. What if there was more? More I didn't know? I had to find out. The next morning, I met Derek at a small diner by the beach. I arrived early, hoping the quiet atmosphere would give me the space to think, but the truth was, my mind was a jumbled mess. I didn't know what to expect from him, whether he had more secrets to reveal, or if he was just another person trying to offer me empty words of comfort. Derek showed up right on time, his usual easy smile replaced with something more serious. He slid into the booth across from me, glancing over his shoulder at the quiet hum of the diner before focusing on me. Charles, I know you're going through hell right now, he started, his voice quiet but steady. And I'm not here to make excuses for what Evelyn did. What happened? It's not okay. But I think you need to hear something. I nodded, barely able to process the weight of his words. What more could there possibly be? Look, man, he said, leaning in slightly. I know about Daniel. I know what you found out about Evelyn's affair. But I also know that, well, there's something you haven't considered. Something important. I raised an eyebrow, confused. What do you mean? What could I possibly be missing? Derek hesitated for a moment, like he was choosing his words carefully. Evelyn, she's hurting too, Charles. I think you know that. But the reason I wanted to talk is because I think you both might be stuck in a pattern that's hard to break. Neither of you knew how to communicate. Neither of you really understood what was missing in your marriage until it was too late. I sat back, trying to wrap my mind around what he was saying. So you're telling me it's my fault? That I didn't notice? No, Derek quickly corrected. It's not about blame. It's just, sometimes, we get so caught up in what we think a relationship should be, that we forget to actually connect with the person in front of us. I think you and Evelyn were both holding on to something that wasn't working, without seeing what could have been better. I was quiet for a long time, just absorbing his words. My emotions were still raw. But something about Derek's honesty made me pause. He wasn't telling me what I wanted to hear. He was telling me what I needed to hear. And what now? I finally asked, feeling the weight of it all pressing on me. How am I supposed to move forward from this? How can I ever trust her again? Derek looked at me with a knowing gaze. You don't have to trust her right away. But maybe, just maybe, the best thing for both of you is to start over. Not as husband and wife, but as people. Not to fix what's broken, but to understand it. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The bitterness that had consumed me for days started to fade, replaced by a strange clarity. Maybe I wasn't meant to repair everything right now. Maybe I needed to focus on rebuilding myself, on finding my own path again. Thanks, Derek, I said quietly. I think I understand now. It's not about forgiveness, at least, not yet. It's about figuring out what comes next. He gave me a small, encouraging smile. Exactly. Just take it one step at a time. The rest of the conversation was less about the past and more about the future. Derek reminded me that I wasn't alone in this, and that whatever I chose to do next, I had the strength to move forward. It wasn't going to be easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is. That afternoon, I drove back to the house. I wasn't sure what I was going to say to Evelyn or what would come next for us, but I knew one thing. I was ready to face whatever came. Not with anger, but with understanding. Not for her, but for me. When I stepped into the house, Evelyn was sitting on the couch, her back straight, eyes tired, as if she had been waiting for this moment as much as I had. She looked up at me when I entered. "Charles," she started, but I raised my hand, signaling that I wasn't here to argue. "I've been thinking," I said softly, sitting across from her, "about everything. And I'm not ready to fix what's broken between us. But I am ready to figure out what happens next. For me. For us." Evelyn looked at me, eyes searching my face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I need time. To understand myself again. To heal. And maybe we can figure out what happens between us, but not today. Not now." She nodded slowly, tears welling up in her eyes. "I understand, Charles. I know I hurt you. And I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." I took a deep breath, finally feeling the tension start to ease. "I'm not asking for forgiveness right now, Evelyn. I'm asking for time. And that's all I can give. I don't know what comes next, but for the first time in a while, I feel like I can breathe again. And for the first time since everything had fallen apart, I felt like I might actually be okay. It wouldn't be easy. There would be days of confusion, frustration, and heartache. But I knew that healing wasn't about fixing everything at once. It was about taking small steps, facing the truth, and learning to live with it. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough for now.